Ich habe den Älteren versucht, aber der ist noch nicht hier.
Okay. Ich kann spielen.
Singen oder spielen?
Spielen. Das vom Singen. Alles okay.
Keine Sache, ich kann auch singen. Ich mag das klar. Wirklich nicht gerne, aber...
Wir sind hier eine Familie.
Kein
Problem. Das ist kein Sonntagsfest.
Ja, okay. You can also play cards, then I can follow you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Prabhu So, Bhagavatam Acharya Sasata Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Silarita Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se ko Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Yamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Bi Bhakti Vijay Vijankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Brihat Medanga Ki Jai, Sama Veda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories some devotees Hare Krishna, all glories some devotees Hare Krishna, all glories some devotees Hare Krishna, all glories Sisi Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading from a Transcendental Diary, volume number 1, and we're in the chapter Nellore, Andhra Pradesh. It is this January 6, 1976. I hope this is all fine. Yes, okay. Prabhupada called in Harikesh, and had everyone sit while Harikesh read some of his dialectic spiritualism. Last night he read to Prabhupada for 45 minutes, and Prabhupada was pleased. Prabhupada said that the article should be immediately printed in the BTG, as well sent to Hamsaduta for printing in German and Russian. Harikesh used many related examples to disprove the theories of Lenin and Engels, and most of them given by Prabhupada over the last few weeks, along with some of his own. He completely disproved their theory of idealistic materialism, showing it to be illogical, nonsensical notion. Encouraging further discussion on the subject, Prabhupada pointed out that there could be no question of dialectic in discussions between materialists because all parties involved were imperfect. He challenged us that if they are indeed imperfect, what is the value of their discussion? He gave an example to illustrate the point. If children discuss some serious subject matter, what is the value? They are all children. In the cradle of nature, that's all. Therefore, prakriti kriyamani, just like children. Sit down here. He has to sit down. Then where's the freedom to discuss? Prakriti says, you sit down here. Don't go there. He has to accept. What is the value of discussion? Harikesh continued to read aloud, explaining how food production is dependent on God. Achyutananda pointed out that in Russia they don't have enough grains, yet the communists like to accuse the religionist of withholding food to control the population. Prabhupada asked why they're having grain shortages, and I recalled that in the papers they had reported insufficient rainfall in the East Bloc countries, forcing them to buy elsewhere. Then he inquired and promptly answered his own question. Then you have to depend on rain. And when we say Parijat Anasabhava and Janak Bhavati Prajina, that means rascal. You take one side, Arada Kuti Naya. Cut the chicken in half and separate the mouse, it is expensive, and keep the red side, you get the eggs. He laughed heartily at the foolishness of trying to grow grains without making the necessary sacrifice. This Aradi Kuchinaya. Rascal does not know if he separates the mouse, there will be no egg. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So the last couple of festival days, We have not spoken so much about so I'm today will give a rather short class, and then I have a little bit longer read about Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Is that okay? Okay. We did that. We're reading from Canto 6, Prescribed Duties of Mankind, Chapter 1, the history of the life of Ajamil, text number 39. Katham svedhyate danda kim vyasastatanam ipsitam dandaya kim karinat sarve ahosved katichinniranam Kataham svidyaya danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam dandaya kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam dandaya kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Kata savit diryadanta kim vyasastanam ipsitam dandaya kim sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam dadayam kim kachina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katha svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam danda kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam dandya kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam. Ladies. Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam danda kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam danda kim karina sarve ahosved katichinniranam Katham svidhyate danda kim vyasastanam ipsitam Tata Kim Karina Sarve Ahosvitkati Chinyanam Katam Sweet, by which means Driyate is imposed. Danda, punishment. Kim, va. Kim, what? Va, or. Asya, of this. Stananam, the place. Ipsitam, desirable. Dandya, punishable. Kim, whether. Karina, fruitive actors. Sarve, all. Ahosvit, or whether. Karichet, some. Nonam, of the human beings. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What is the process of punishing others? Who are the actual candidates for punishment? Are all karmis engaged in fructive activities punishable, or only some of them? Purport. One who has the power to punish others should not punish everyone. There are innumerable living entities, the majority of whom are in the spiritual world and are nitya mukta, everlasting liberated. There is no question of judging these liberated beings. Only a small fraction of the living entities, perhaps 1/4, are in the material world. And the major portion of the living entities in the material world, 8 million of the 8,400,000 forms of lives, are lower than human beings. They are not punishable, for under the laws of material nature, they are automatically evolving. Human beings who are advanced in consciousness are responsible, but not all of them are punishable. Those engaged in advanced pious activities are beyond punishment. Only those who engage in sinful activities are punishable. Therefore, the Vishnu Dutas practically inquired about who is punishable and why Yamaraj has been designated to discriminate between who is punishable and who is not. Who is one to be judged? That is the basic principle of authority. These are the questions raised by the Yamadutas. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshun Mitamjana Tasmai Si Guru. What a nice garland. So the other day Maharaj was describing, Bhakti Bhushan Swami was describing the Yamadutas. They have horns and they look very ugly and very dangerous. And then he said they also have a tail. So they're looking like the devils. When we go in the Christian description, we have Lucifer or we have the devil. And that's how the devil looks. He has horns and he has a tail and he's dangerous. So these dangerous living entities are there. As we heard in a previous sloka, Ajamil is laying down. He's unconscious. The Yamadutas came. They have their ropes. They try to pull away the soul with the attached subtle body. We can see in that picture, you see some subtle form coming out from the material form. They're pulling out as long. Earlier that was described in a purport that as long as we are in the material world, the soul is covered by a subtle body, starting with the false ego. The soul is the real ego, and the real ego, it's like when we're in the spiritual world, we also have a shape, we also have a surface, we also have a form, but we have a spiritual form. So it's not that we can understand that, because I've seen a nice video was by a mathematician lady, and she gave an example that a person who's two-dimensional, we make a drawing, and let's say we put little hands, we make this two-dimensional things even moving, but the two-dimensional things has no access and has no ability to move things in a three-dimensional space. I don't want to go too physical here. I think we can follow. And then as humans, we do have an idea about the next dimension, the fourth dimension in this material world, which we can perceive to some degree is time. So, and I remember long back, I met some guy, he was doing a professor in physics, and he was trying to show, you know, we have those graphs, you know, you have curves and graphs who show mathematical functions. So he was trying to show time, which is not possible because he had some system which was so time is already. Then we have Einstein, we have intelligent brains. He has a theory of relativity. So he has an idea. He's saying when we are moving at the speed of time, at lights and time stops. So we have a little glimpse of this fourth dimension. But now when we go in the spiritual realm, there is a reality which is far beyond our ability to understand, to calculate, or to even imagine, because there's so many more dimensions. So the soul is having a body there, but it is of spiritual nature, and this is a real ego. And then in the moment the soul is taking this step, or there's a disagreement where we come from, but at some point that everyone agrees upon, I will start there. The soul has taken a step that he wanted to enjoy the material energy. It wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. That is, we can see that many material things, even if you're angry, you can fight for Krishna. If you have some lust, you can beget children for Krishna. Many of the different material, not really good qualities can be engaged in Krishna's service. But the original problem which we have created was the one of envy of the Lord. So, and envy, even in a material setting, cannot be engaged in the service of the Lord. So envy is the root cause, and from that envy came this idea that I can be Krishna, or I want to be in joy, I want to be the center of attraction. And then Krishna has created for all of us, it is in a prison, it's a prison house in a sense. On the other hand, it is a playground for the souls who want to be independent, or who want to think they're independent. Prabhupada just said that children, sit down. The material nature said, sit here, don't go there. Bam, that's it. Prakriti is giving the rule. Durga, fort. It's very difficult to overcome once the ruling is there. And we are thinking we are moving the body. But yesterday the devotee who gives the class said, no, it is not. The material energy is moving the body. The soul itself inside is not moving. So what makes the soul attached? It is the ahankara. And that is the start of the settled bodies, and mind, intelligence, as their intelligence and mind is there. So this settled body, which we can see in the picture where the Yamadutas are pulling, they're pulling the soul. With the soul comes the settled body, will only dissolve when finally this airplane comes from the spiritual world and you step in there. Then there is a description that you again go to all the planetary systems. On your way back, again you are getting allured. Hey, you want to get down? That option is there, you know. You see the heavenly planets come by, Brahmaloka comes by, very beautiful. And then once you leave this material world, then this ahankara is dissolved, and then your settled body is totally dissolved. So that is there. Srila Prabhupada elaborates it here in the purport. So this Yamadutas and this Vishnu Dutas are there, and it's like, hey, you know, the Yamadutas say, hey, you're very beautiful, pure slokas, very beautiful guys, you look so fantastic, but hey, who are you? We're doing our duty here. Our master is Yamaraj. Later we find out they were thinking Yamaraj is all in all, obviously. And now the Vishnu Dutas, they're bouncing back. They say, yeah, okay, then hey, if you're challenging us, and you please tell us, what is it? Who are you? You explain us. Who will be punished? So they're bouncing back on them, knowing. Just if you see the comparison, it's like you have a intelligent college professor, you have a bump on the street, so you can see there is this beautiful Vishnu Dutas, like forms like Sri Vishnu himself, and then those ugly fellows are in a little bit discussion here. So Srila Prabhupada stated that he's coming to, this is very interesting, he's coming to Nitya Mukta, he's speaking about the liberated souls, and he's making the points they're obviously not punishable. And it is so nice how he's using the English language. Only a small fraction of the living entities, and he says perhaps 1/4, because we're giving the description that the total creation is cut into 4 pieces, and one corner is the material energy, and that's 1/4 of the whole creation. But in the moment we speak about the spiritual world, it is unlimited. So that's why he says perhaps 1/4, because actually this is only that we with our brains can have some idea. Okay, there is a cake, we cut it into 4, 3/4 are for them, and 1/4 is for that. Everyone can understand 1/4, but it is actually only perhaps like that. And so now we go to the line here that the major portion, 8,400,000 species are there. It says the Bhagavatam, so most of them are animals, and animals are not to be punished, in a sense, by Yamaraj. I was on Padiyatra for 10 years, so we have bulls, and the bulls need to carry the cart, and if the bulls don't carry the cart, first you tickle the guy, you pinch him a little bit, and if nothing helps, you show him the stick, and if that doesn't really help, then sometimes you have to use the stick, because the bull has to move, and he's an animal, he's a beast of burden, he has to work. So that's not what meant here. Punishment here is meant that when the soul leaves the body, then he comes in front of the court of Yamaraj, and from there he moves to the next situation. So their animals don't need to be punished, because ultimately we also agreeing that there is evolution. Not only the karmis agree that there is evolution, we are also following the principles of evolution. Exactly how it works we don't know, but let's say you're in the body of a small ant, then next upgradation is a body of a little bigger ant, and next upgradation is to become a worm or a butterfly. So slowly the living entity moves up. And I remember that hearing a class, and the subject was if an animal is very sick and is suffering, should we not just kill the animal? And no, we should not do that, because the living entity is in this body now. Let's say it's a rat or a dog or something. Let's say a dog. The dog is in this dog body, and he's in bad shape, and you're thinking you're giving mercy by stop him suffering, but maybe this is the last 5 days he's in a dog body, and then he gets a different species. So now if you interrupt that program, then again he has to take birth for dog, and after 5 days he will be driven over or something. So we should not interfere there, because that is an automatic program, it's an upregulation program, it's an evolution. And then what is happening eventually, I remember reading a description, I'm not fully fully recalling it. I think people in the mode of goodness come from the cow, people in the mode of passion come from the tiger or something. I'm not fully remembering. So at some point there's a turning point from animal, you turn into a human being, first most probably an uncivilized human being, somewhere in the forest or whatever, and then slowly when you're in the human species, that Srila Prabhupada makes a point, this is where this program is starting, where you're punishable. And he's referring back to the fifth canto. And in the fifth canto, there's a lot of descriptions about different type. I mentioned it the other day, a different type of hellish planets. I don't want to go too deep in that. You know, people get thrown on the tree with those big spikes. We have those trees actually in India. And they make thorns. On the rose plant, there's thorns, stickers, but they're not small like in the rose, they're like very big. Living entities get thrown on that and pulled down, they get ripped apart, they get thrown on the hot copper planet with fire inside and heat from the top, and there's nothing to drink and they have to run around, and it is a settled form, it's not a gross body, you're in a settled body there, so you can't die. That is when you see like the Yamadutas torturing the living entities. So we can see the Christianity says you go to hell, they're not that wrong. They don't have detailed knowledge, and they're thinking this is only one that they have cut out. I think King Constantinos, at some point in the Bible, the reincarnation got cut out. They found out the early Christians was believing in reincarnation, but it's similar. So you get thrown in hell, you're punished. So here the thing is there, who is punishable? Who's actually punishable? But not everyone is punishable. Srila Prabhupada says in this part of the purport that higher human beings are not punishable, who have performed a higher mode of pious activities. I mean, devotees are not punishable, and there is even material consideration. So I think, let me try to remember, ladies are not punishable, children are not punishable, old people are not punishable. There's a whole list of people in the Dharma Shastra which are not punishable. They should never be punished. So this is the challenge here by the Vishnu Dutas, who you can punish. Prabhupada said, if you have the power to punish, you cannot just punish everyone. So a whole question is being put here on this Yamadutas, and they have to reply. And the next sloka is very much more elaborate about that. It is actually a famously quoted sloka, and it goes more into depth. Basically, I don't want to step ahead for tomorrow's sloka. The question comes: what is Dharma? What is Adharma? I mean, yesterday he jumped ahead. He brought it already, so I can refer to yesterday's class. So, what is Dharma? What is Adharma? Who is a Dharmi? Who is a Adharmi? So, this is what the question is being pulled on. Now we can see in the slokas who are coming what those ugly Yamadutas are going to reply, what is their intelligence, what is going to come out from them. So let's see what is the situation, what is going to come. So again, going back to the original question which is in discussion here, and because the Yamadutas are confused. That has never happened before. It was a common thing for them. It's like the worker in the factory is trying to, he's in the assembly line, and every day he's tightening the bolt, and the part is coming, he wants to tighten the bolt, and somebody he's never seen before, who maybe looks very fancy and is very good looking, comes, hey, don't tighten that bolt. So the guys say, what's going on, man? I have to tighten the bolt, man. That's my job. And they're pulling out the sole and they're coming, stop that. So they're very confused. They're extremely disturbed. And now the Vishnu Dutta says, hey man, if you know how to tighten the bolt, you explain me what it is for. So they're put on the spot. And this will keep on going, and in the next sloka it will get, they're tightening up much more intensively, and eventually the Yamadutas have to refer back to their master, to Yamaraj, and thinking that he is the highest. And again, I referred to yesterday, then Yamaraj give clear instruction that you stay away from the devotees. And there's little tricks, we all have a kanti mala. It is, in one sense, Prabhupada says like a dog collar. Dog collar. That everyone knows whose dog you are. You have an owner. You're not a stray dog. But on the other hand, when you have Tulsi on yourself, then when the Yamadutas are coming, they're getting repelled. It's like a mosquito repellent, When you're in a place where many mosquitoes, they sit and bite you, then you spray that repellent on, and then they leave you alone. So when you have Tulsi on your body, then you're not going to get punished. Or here, when someone other chants a holy name, even not in a pure form, somewhat unoffensive, then it is your good chance, then these Yamadutas will be repelled. And if you're not like that, then most of the people will be put in the court of Yamaraj. And as I said the other day already, if you go on YouTube, I don't want to distract you, but there's many people who actually have been in this near-death experience, and they're seeing those beings coming. I remember one devotee in India, his father was in the hospital, and he was not faithful. He was basically against his son being a devotee the whole time, and he got almost taken, and I guess by the prayers of the devotee who was present, he came back. He had seen the Yamadutas, and you should have seen afterwards he became a very nice devotee. It worked instantly. Instant reaction. Seeing those guys, whoa. Okay. Is there any comment or any question on this? Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I do want to, if you allow me, quickly tell a story.
Please.
Of the modern days, an Anjali story.
Okay.
Where actually one devotee did meet the Yamadutas.
Yes.
Yes. This happened in Bangladesh. I was personally present there. To make it really short, some money was stolen from the duty department. And some Brahmana was called to work out, who it was by chanting some mantras to some rice. And everybody should eat this raw rice, and then it would be obvious who is the thief. So I actually took part myself in the exercise. I was very curious. So we all got this banana leaf plate with some raw rice, and we were asked to chew this raw rice, and after a while spit it out on the banana leaf. And the person who can't make a semi-liquid paste from this, he is the thief. So, and there was indeed one devotee where this raw rice was very, very dry. And then this mystic Brahmana went around and said, oh, this looks suspicious. Put it back in your mouth, chew a little bit more, and then afterwards it was even more dry. So then we were all asked to leave the room, and he was a brahmachari actually, second initiated brahmachari. So then he was asked, so where's the money? You know, Bengali style. So, and then this devotee said, yes, I will get it from my room. But then he didn't come back, and he actually took some really heavy poison. He was already prepared for the scenario, so he had a little bottle of poison in his pocket, and he took this poison. And the devotees went there, had a look, where is he? And they could immediately smell from his mouth that he took this poison. So they rushed him to the hospital. Thank God it was early morning, so there was no big traffic jams in Dhaka. And I told them, take the bottle with the poison along, you know, just so the doctors can see what it is. So then one brahmachari went with him, and when the doctors saw what the poison, they said, he will not survive this. And then in the middle of the night, this brahmachari who had stolen the money, he said to his companion, oh, I think I'm going to leave my body, let's chant the Shingadev prayers. And that actually saved him. And I had a bit of a relationship with this boy, so he actually came to me afterwards when he was released. And he said he got the darshan of the Yamadutas. And he was describing them, and I could see he was not making it up.
No, they're not making
He
it
was
up.
saying, yes, you know, horns so furious. 3 were at the foot end, 3 at the, you know, head end, and 3 times they came to try and take him. But because they were singing the Shingadev prayers, they couldn't take him. Yeah, so I think this is a pretty amazing story that, you know, even though he was chanting Hare Krishna, he was wearing neck beads. But because he tried to commit suicide, the Yamadutas would have taken him. But because he was Krishna conscious enough to chant the Shingadev prayers there on intensive care unit, they couldn't take him.
And I'm sure he didn't steal the money again. He was cured.
Yeah, I mean, he also became a much better devotee, but this whole thing really knocked him out for a while. He was quite down. Yeah.
But he died?
No, he
No,
didn't.
no.
No, he survived. Otherwise he couldn't have told me that he saw the Yamadutas. No, he survived. And the doctors were all shocked. How is it possible, you know, that he survived this poison, you know?
So let's all chant a lot of Hare Krishna in Nishingadev. So when it is a training, ultimately we always say, Srila Prabhupada always says, we are training. Then the test comes at the time when we leave our body. I remember we were doing something, maybe it's rather frivolous. We made a decision to go from Devprayag, where the Ganga starts, to Ganga Sagar by boat. So we made our own boat. It started already pretty much. So we got from Russia to balloons, and we made a boat. Parshuram from England, I don't know if somebody knows him. He was he had imaginated that's what we want to do. And Mahavishnu Swami from England, he's crazy enough to come on the boat with us. And so the first day we already fall over one time. I was steering the boat, I had some experience, and Para wanted to steer. He led us into a cliff and we flipped over, but nothing bad really happened. So next day we came on this huge rapid and we broke the rudder off. And still no problem. Then comes the next big rapid, so I was steering with the pedal and this huge wave came, and that was that big that we didn't jump. It jumped over us and I got washed off. And even I was wearing the safety jacket in this raging rapid, that didn't help anything, and it was all foamy water. And at some point, I remember I thought, that's it. And neither I was afraid, but I was not chanting, I was not ready, I was just thinking, oh my God, that's it. And then my head popped up and I was saved. The rapid came to an end and they pulled me out. So I was not ready, that's for sure. And I'd already chanted for quite some years. I was just thinking, that's it. So today...
can I ask one more quick question?
Yes?
You know, because we always say that animals, they don't get karma. But then, you know, looking at the dogs, there seem such different varieties of life situation for dogs.
Oh boy.
You know? You can be a dog in Germany where you are pampered and everything.
I can answer your question.
Okay, please.
The worst bad karma in animals I've ever seen anywhere is usually at Radhakund. Many times we see the dog, he doesn't have a skull, you can see the brain and the flies are sitting on it. And it's not one time I've seen it. One time I've seen 2 dogs had intercourse and one got driven over by the car. So the dead dog was still attached to the living dog, to their tie. Also, I've seen really bad things. So Srila Prabhupada gives a simple description. He says that if we commit offenses in the holy Dham, we become animals. So you come from the human species and enter into the animal species. So you bring karma with yourself. The animals itself, we even say, what is that? The laws of nature, that picture, and the sloka is what goes around comes around. So you kill an animal, and even there is that ritual, you know, when you want to eat the goat, in the Amavasya, you tell her in the ear, I kill you, you can kill me next life. So when you come from the human species into the animal species, then you come with some load of karma, and maybe you need to be punished badly. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, so then if you bring good karma, then you may be dog in Germany.
In the devotee family, yeah.
And bad in the devotee family. And if you bring bad karma, then Africa or whatever.
Yes, whatever.
Because Holy Dham is still...
That's a whole nother issue, yes.
Good situation.
Yes, yes. You know, in Mayapur, the dogs all have this skin disease. I haven't seen that anywhere else that bad as there. So then you have, when you go to near, it's about humans now, you don't hardly see, I've been with Padiyatra all around India, this elephantitis, you hardly ever see the people with a big foot. But when you come to Orissa, to this whole 2-3 districts around Jagannath Puri, they all have that. And the local people say, if you step on Mahaprasadam and you don't feel sorry, then that's what happens. So I'm just saying so.
So now people also in India, they have dogs as pets.
Yes.
So that's an interesting karma, you
know? Yes. and usually in Vrindavan we do that ceremony pretty often when people bring their ashes. It happened already more than once that the ashes of some pets were coming. Devotee pets, so that is an option. It can hit you hard, but your pet, you can... I know one devotee, an old friend, do you remember Jai Vijay? From Padiyatra, India? He was a leader, he's in America now. He has 2 dogs and he feeds them vegetarian prasadam, so lucky dogs. So today is the... Anyone else? Okay, today is the disappearance day of... Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the text is a little long. Oh, der Erscheinungstag, sorry. I downloaded the disappearance date lecture, okay, sorry. It's the Erscheinungstag from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's a half day fasting, and I just downloaded something from ISKCON Desire Tree. I had some shorter ones also, but I thought, since there is no breakfast, it may get 9, I don't know how long it is. It looked a little lengthy. So about the year 1500, after departure, the incarnation of God, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, began the Hare Krishna movement in Navadvip, a city in the Indian province of West Bengal. This movement, based on the philosophy of ancient Sanskrit texts of devotion to Krishna, like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, spread all over India in a short time. The movement popularized Sankirtan, the congregation chanting of the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as the most effective means of God realization for the present age of Kali at a time of rampant fearlessness, sin, and materialism. After 750, after departure, the influence of the Hare Krishna movement seemed to wane. Many sects of Sahajias, cheap pseudo-devotees, sprouted up, each claiming to be the true predecessor of the Vaishnava Dharma, the religion of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Because of their bad characters, the Sahajias brought a disrepute unto the pure movement of love of God begun by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the 1800s, an eternal, perfect devotee of Krishna descended from the spiritual world to the material world to revive the Hare Krishna movement and to invite its expansion beyond the borders of initiate the expansion beyond the borders of India. This was Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So it is true that first Mahaprabhu came, then the 6 Goswamis came, then a couple of more rounds of highly qualified Vaishnavas, and then our Sampradaya more or less became a Babaji Sampradaya. It was continuous on. We have the Guru Parampara, it was continuing, but the actual movement kind of slowed down. And so here we have Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. It's a very clear procession from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He prayed for a ray of Vishnu, he got Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and then Srila Prabhupada met him and he told him right in the beginning, you're an intelligent young boy, you should preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the English language. This will be good for you and for others. So this is a kind of rekindling, it's a restarting of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan mission. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was named Kedarnath Datta by his father, some say his godfather, was born in opulent circumstances on the 2nd of September 1838 on a Sunday in Birnaga, Ulagama, in the district of Nadia. He was the 7th son of Raja Krishnananda Datta, a great devotee of Lord Nityananda. He was also known as the great grandson of Madan Mohan and the 3rd son of his godfather Ananda Chandra. He would be known as Daila Kulena, Prahlad in the family of demons. This was because Vaishnavaism was not very much respected in his family. On his mother's side, there was no respect for Vaishnavaism at all. They were Shaktas. His childhood was spent at the mansion of his material grandfather, Maustupati Mahasa, in Birnaga. His environment at the time was very opulent. He got his elementary education at the primary school started by his grandmother. Later he attended an English school in Krishnanagar, started by the king of Nadia. He left that school when his older brother died unexpected of cholera. When he was 11 years old, his father passed away. Subsequently, the grant of land that had been conferred upon his grandmother changed owners. At this time, the family fell into condition of poverty. The great wealth provided all to be illusionary. Still, the young Kedarnath Datta passed over these difficulties with great endurance. His mother arranged a marriage for him when he was just 12 in 1850 after departure, and then 5-year-old to the then 5-year-old daughter of Madhusudan Mitra Mahasa, a resident of Rajgata. Around this time, Kasi Prasad Ghosh Mahasa Thakur, Kedarnath Datta's uncle, who had mastered under the British education, became to ultra grammar after the death of his material grandfather. He schooled young Kedarnath Datta at his home in Calcutta. This was at first registered by Kedarnath Datta's mother, but by the time he was years of age and he was allowed to go. So first they didn't want to let him go. The house was situated in the Hiduna district of central Calcutta. Kasi Prasad was the central figure of the literary cycle at this time, being the editor of the Hindu Intelligencer. Many writers came to him to learn the art of writing in correct English. At this time, and recognizing Kedarnath's Datta's natural ability, he assisted Kashi Prasad by judging manuscripts submitted to the newspaper. So Kedarnath Datta studied Kasi Prasad's books and also frequented the public library. So we can see from the very beginning of his life, he got very nice education and he had a great ability to write. He attended Calcutta's Hindu Charitable Trust Institution High School and became an expert English reader, speaker, and writer. He became ill from the salty water of Calcutta. He returned to Ulagrama and he was treated by a Muslim Stochaya Tantric who predicted that the village of Birnaga would soon become pestilence-ridden and deserted. The Muslim also predicted Kedarnath Datta would become recognized as a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So don't underestimate the Muslim tantrics. At the age of 18 years, 1856, Kedarnath Datta entered college in Calcutta. He started writing extensively in both English and Bengali. Those essays were published in local journals. He also lectured in both languages. He further studied English literature at the time extensively and taught speech making to a person who later became a well-known orator in the British Parliament. Between the years 1857 and 1858, he composed a two-part English epic entitled The Poryade, which he planned to complete in 12 books. These two books describe the life of a Purus who met Alexander the Great. Srimad Devendranath Thakur, the oldest son of Mahasi Devanath Thakur, was Sri Kedarnath Datta's best friend during those scholastic years. He assisted Kedarnath Datta in his studies of Western religious literatures. Affectionately, Kedarnath Datta used to call Devendranath Thakur a Baro Dada or Big Brother. He was very taken by Christian theology and regarding it more interesting and less offensive than Hindu monism, Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya. He would spend many hours comparing the writings of Canning, Theodore Parker, Emerson, and Newman. At the British Indian Society, he gave a lecture on the evolution of matter to the material mode of goodness. At the end of 1858, Kedarnath Datta returned to Birnaga and found the Musi prediction about that place to have become true. The place was ruined and deserted. Sri Kedarnath Datta brought his mother and paternal grandmother with him from there to Calcutta. Soon after, he went to Orissa to visit his paternal grandfather, Raja Vallabha Datta, who used to be a big man in Calcutta, who was now living as an ascetic in the Orissan countryside. His days were coming to a close. He could predict the future, so he knew himself very well. He wanted Kedarnath Datta to be with him when he departed this world, which he did in 1859, when Kedarnath Datta was 21 years of age. After receiving his grandfather's last instruction, he traveled to all the monasteries and temples in the state of Orissa. A young householder, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, began to consider the question of the means of his livelihood. He was not interested in business, as he'd seen how the apparent dishonesty of the trade would do to competition of sales. He had morally weakened the merchant class. That means they were cheating in the name of business. Their work ethics becoming removed from the principle of mutually helping others, by which they would automatically be protected from the failure to succeed. as well as being cooperatively assisted by the natural laws of compassion, karma. He decided instead to become a school teacher. He established a school for English education in the village of Kendrapal near Kutigrama in Orissa, thus becoming a pioneer in English teaching in that state. That school is still there. We visited. You been? It's easy to visit. It's near Balasore. When you go to Chirachura Gopinath, it's quite near from there. He could also see the oppressive power wielded by the landowners of Kutigrama. After some time, he went to Puri and passed a teacher's examination. He got a teacher's post in a Kathak school and later became headmaster of that school. That is also still there. Of a school in Badrak and in Medinapur. He dedicated work and was noted by the school board authorities. In Badrak, his first son, Ananda Prasad Achyutananda, was born in 1860. He published a book that year in English that described all the ashrams and temples in the state. This book received favorable mention in the work called Orissa by the British historian Sir William Hunter. Hunter praised Kedarnath Datta's moral and religious character, as everyone did. So we can see it's a very young age. As the headmaster of the Medinipura High School, Kedarnath Datta looked into the various religious sects, their philosophies and practices. He could see that many of them were taking it all very cheaply. He came to understand that the only real religion that he had ever been established in Bengal was that of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, at the present, his movement was not well represented. So here it starts. Due to the misrepresentation and corruptions and influence of the upper Sampradayas, the sincere soul of Kedarnath Datta could not even get a copy of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita despite all of his efforts. So his interest is started. The Thakur made an onslaught against those who belonged to the upper Sampradayas who were polluting Gaudiya Vaishnava by basically 13 deviant philosophies. Aul, Baul, two types, Kata, Bhaja, Neda, I leave it. Being a follower of the... Okay. David, Chaturveda, Nada. Those deviant groups, mostly because of their boldness, had been seen by the public as a Gaudiya Sampradaya. Thus, actually, none of them were following the pure Vaishnava regulative principles strictly as laid down by the follower of the Sri Krishna Chaitanya, namely the Goswamis. Being a follower of the Goswamis or not is interpreted on qualifying one to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava. Kedarnath Datta's first wife died. So in the town of Jakapura, he married Bhagavati De. In the year 1861, Kedarnath Datta accepted the post of deputy magistrate in the government of Bengal. Then he became a collective officer after seeing the corruption of the government workers. He established an organization called the Brit Samaj. He wrote an English book in 1863 called Our Wants. At this time, he also constructed a home in Ranaganj. Later, in 1863, he stayed at Badwan, where he composed two novel poems in Bengali, Vigyan Grama, Deserted Village, and Sannyasi, volume 39, and of the 1863 Calcutta Review praised those poems, saying, "We hope the author will continue to give us his countrymen the benefit of his elegant and unassuming pen, which is quite free from those objectionable licenses of thought and on expressions which abound in many dramas recently published. The wonder of the day is the creation of a literature for Hindu ladies, and we trust that many more educated natives will also have the good sense to devote their time and abilities to the attainment of this most desirable aim." Very British. The rhyme and style of those two poems were original. They gave birth to a new way of writing poetry in Bengali language. Kedarnath Datta in the post of deputy magistrate, so he has a very high position. That very few Indians ever attained such a position. You needed a very high education and a very flawless character that the Britishers would bring up an Indian, because basically that was dangerous for them. Too much, they didn't want educated Indians growing up, and eventually became a magistrate. That was the highest position an Indian actually was legally allowed to hold. He took the position of a deputy register with the power of deputy collector and deputy magistrate in the district of Chapara. He also was known to have become quite fluent in Persian and Urdu. In a place called Saran in Chapara, a clique of tea planters made unjust demands from him. He successfully opposed them. And while in Sajan, he visited the Gautama ashram at Gondara, desiring to establish a school for teaching Naya Shastra. He delivered a speech there in 1866, very well received. The school was in fact established, the foundation stone being laid in 1883 by Sri Rivers Thompson, after whom the school was named. Susi Kedarnath Datta had no further part in the project after his speech. The talk he gave was instrumental in securing public aid for the school. Also in 1866, Kedarnath Datta translated the Bali Register Manual into Urdu, which was circulated by the government to the United Provinces of Agra and Oudh. This manual was used by the registration department in those areas. So he learned Urdu in a short amount of time, to that degree that he could do government translations of English legal texts. Kedarnath Datta was transferred to Punia from the Chapa, where he took charge of the government and judicial departments. He was then transferred to Dinjapur, West Bengal in 1868, becoming the deputy magistrate. At this time, he received copies of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita from Calcutta. He read Chaitanya Charitamrita repeatedly. His faith in Krishna consciousness developed until he was absorbed into the pure Bhakti Shastras day and night. He was increasingly submitting heartfelt prayers to the Lord's mercy. He came to understand the supreme majesty and power of the one and absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. He published a song about Chaitanya entitled Sachinanda Prema Lankara. In 1869, while serving as a deputy magistrate under the government of Bengal in Dinjapur, he delivered a speech in the form of a treatise had written on the Srimad Bhagavatam to a big congregation of many prominent men of letters in many parts of India and England. He was transferred to Kampara, during which time his second son, Radhika Prasad, was born. In Champerana, people used to worship a ghost in a banyan tree, which had the power to influence the mind of the local judge to decide in favor of the worshipper. Kedarnath Datta engaged the father of Pandit Ramabai, a famous girl scholar, to read Srimad Bhagavatam under the tree continuously, day by day and night. After 1 month, the tree crashed to the ground, and naturally many people found faith in the Srimad Bhagavatam. From Champarana, he went to Puri, which enlarged his heart to no end. In the capital of Orissa, in the known of Kamalena, where he lived, a yogi called Bishwaksena, that's a very famous story now, who would lean into the fire while sitting close by. He returned to an erect sitting posture, and this way he'd rock back and forth over the flames. He could also produce fire from his head. He had 2 companions going by the names Brahma and Shiva. He claimed to be Mahavishnu. The small kings of Orissa came under his sway and were providing funds for the construction of a temple for the 3 Guna avatars. They also sent him women with who engaged in Rasa Leela, enjoyments. Bishaksena declared he'll drive off the British from ruling Orissa, and he himself would become king. He published that statement, which was circulated around Orissa. The British thought him revolutionary for speaking out against the British Raj, so the district governor of the national government of Belgaum drew up arrest orders. But nobody in Orissa dared to act on those orders, as they all feared Bishaksena Mr. Ravindra Sah, district communist of Orissa, requested Kedarnath Datta to bring Bishop Sena to justice. Kedarnath Datta went personally to Bishop Sena. Bishop Sena showed some powers that he would normally scare off an ordinary man and informed Kedarnath Datta that he knew very well who he was and his mission, but since he, Bishop Sena, was a lord, he better not interfere with him. That was enough for Kedarnath Datta, who replied by acknowledging Bishop Sena's accomplishment in yoga and tantra and requested him to come to Puri, where he would have to the darshan of Jagannath. Bishop Sena humbly said, "Why should I come to see Jagannath? He is only a hunk of wood. I am the Supreme in person." Kedarnath Datta became instantly furious and arrested the rogue, brought him to Puri, threw him in jail, where he was guarded by 3 Muslim constables and 72 policemen from Cuttack, day and night. So they did fear the guy. The accomplices of his divine trilogy, Brahma and Shiva, avoided arrest by claiming they'd been forced by Bishop Sena to do as they'd done. But Mr. Taylor, subdivisional officer at Koda, later prosecuted them. The fearless Kedarnath Datta tried Bishop Sena in Puri. The trial lasted 18 days, during which time thousands of people of whom he had control over gathered outside the courtroom demanding Bishop Sena's release. On day 6 of the trial, Kedarnath Datta's second daughter, Kandabini, aged 6, became seriously ill and nearly died. But within a day she had recovered. Kedarnath Datta knew it was the power of the tantric yogi at work. He remarked, "Yes, let us all die, but this rascal must be punished." The very next day in court, the yogi announced that he'll show his power and would show much more of it. He suggested that Kedarnath Datta should release him at once or face worse miseries. On the last day of the trial, Kedarnath Datta himself became ill from high fever and suffered exactly as his daughter had done for one whole day. But the determined Kedarnath Datta pronounced the man guilty and sentenced him to 18 months for his political conspiracy. When Bishop Sena was being readied for jailing, one Dr. Walter, the district medical officer, cut out all of the yogi's hair. The yogi drew power from his long hair. He hadn't eaten or drunk during the whole trial, so he fell over to the floor like a dead man and had to be taken by stretcher to jail. After 3 months, he was moved to the central jail at Midnapur, where he took poison and died there in the year 1873. In Puri, Sri Kedarnath Datta studied Srimad Bhagavatam with a commentary of Sridhar Swami. He also copied out the longhand of the Satsamdabas of Sri Jiva Goswamis and made a special study of Sri Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Between the years 1874 and 1893, Bhaktivinoda Thakur spent much time in seclusion chanting the holy name, so he still executed his worldly duties perseveringly. He wrote several books in Sanskrit, such as Sri Krishna Samhita, Tattva Sutram, and Tattva Viveka, which we have cited in the early sections of this book. He wrote many books in Bengali, such as the Kalyala Kalpataru, and in 1874 he composed Datta Kastuba in Sanskrit. While in Puri, he established a Vaishnava discussion society known as the Bhagavat Samsad in the Jagannath Vallabhi Gardens, where Sri Ramananda Roy did bhajan. All the prominent Vaishnavas joined this group except for Raghunath Das Babaji, known as Siddha Purush. He thought that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was unauthorized, as he did not wear Kanchi Mala or Tilak. Moreover, he advised other Vaishnavas to avoid Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's association. But soon after, Raghunath Das Babaji contracted a deadly disease for his offenses. In a dream, Lord Jagat appeared to him, told him to pray for the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur if we all wanted release from this illness and death. He did so. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him special medicines and cured him. And also blessed Raghunath Das Babaji with the true awareness of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's position. Others had a natural affection, like C. Swarupdas Babaji, who did bhajan at Satsena near the ocean of Puri. He showed much affection for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and gave him many profound instructions and insight from his own realizations on the bhajan of the holy name. Another Chandandas Babaji preached and printed books, advised that one should chant the name Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in Japa and Nitai Gauradesh Sham in Kirtan. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur preached long and hard to him, and after a long time Charandas Babaji came to his senses and begged forgiveness from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, admitting his fault and spreading this nonsense mantra all over Bengal. 6 months later, Charandas Babaji went mad and died in great distress. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one of his age's foremost devotional scholars, yet humbly presented himself as the insignificant messenger of the Lord, as we can note from the following messages. The way how I got the inspiration to compile this book, Srimad Bhagavatam aka Machimala, is a divine mystery which I felt not proper from my part to disclose, as it might be bridging spiritual conceit. But subsequently I realized that it would be an undoing of my spiritual master, which might state it as an obstacle on the part of my spiritual progress. Therefore, without any shame, I record the fact that while under the benediction of my Guru Sri Bipin Bihari Goswami, who belonged to a great heritage of Thakur Vamsi Bandara, a faithful follower of my Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I was deeply penetrating upon Srimad Bhagavatam. One day in a vision, Sri Swarab Damoda, the right personal attendant of Sri Chaitanya, instructed me to compile the slokas of Srimad Bhagavatam in accordance with the principles of Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana as laid down by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that the book will read with an easy understanding and with great interest and delight by the loving devotees of the Lord. Sri Swarup Damodar further guided me by giving a wonderful explanation of the first sloka of Srimad Bhagavatam and also showed me how to explain the slokas under the light of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So he's basically revealing that he was in touch with the whole Guru Parampara, and for that he must have been, we don't like to say that in his Swarup Siddhi, he was fully empowered. Sri Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur became manager of the Jagannath Puri temple. He used his government power to establish regularly in the worship of the deity. So now this becomes very interesting. Now he's running the whole Jagannath temple. He's already empowered by the governor. He has already government power, and now he's cleaning up the Jagannath Puri temple, like we're taking care of our own temple. So he was sorting it all out. To establish regularity in the worship of the deity. In Jagannath Puri temple court, he established a Bhakti Mandap, where daily discourses of Srimad Bhagavatam was held. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur would spend hours discussing Krishna and chanting the holy name, especially at Tota Gopinath Mandir, the tomb of Haridas Thakur, Siddha Bakul and the Gambhira. He made notes on Vedanta Sutra, which were used by Sri Shamala Goswami in the edition of the Gaudiya Bhashya by Balabhit Vidyabhushan that he published. I should go, or we are enough for today? Yeah, let's. I see the interest is slowly going down. So we see that after following the description here, that after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came the Goswamis, and then eventually the Bhakti cult, there was a whole list of all this upper Sampadayas. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the first to re-establish. He is our grandfather in a sense. And he also found yoga pits. There come so many more things. Many of the prayers we're singing are by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the philosophy, and then more important, he prayed for a ray of Vishnu. We can see that Advaita Acharya prayed and Mahaprabhu came, and here Bhaktivinoda prayed for a ray of Vishnu. He got Vimal Prasad, he got Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as his son, so his vision was fulfilled. He trained him, and then this is a line, then Bhaktisiddhanta came, and then Srila Prabhupada. So we're very much indebted. It's a whole line of things which are happening, and the whole Bhakti movement is now spread all over the world. Before, everyone was thinking the sloka that this will spread all over in every town and village all over the world. They was thinking this is just a glorification. Every town means only in Orissa and Bengal in some places. And Mahaprabhu did went to South India and to Middle India. But here it came actually true. So he did the pioneering work of the Hare Krishna movement. He re-established the proper principles of Vaishnavaism. He got rid of Aul and Paul and Chaki Beki and whatnot all, and outruled them, and then got his son, the ray of Vishnu, and then this is how this Krishna consciousness was installed. And then the presence of Lord Chaitanya, he also sent, first time he sent a book out to Canada. I think the devotees recovered that book. It was at the Macmillan, I forgot, at a library in Canada. So he got this idea of preaching it in English language. He did a lot of Sanskrit work, but he did a lot of works in Bengali, but a lot of works in English. And he started the whole idea of giving it out in English, got Bhaktisiddhanta, and then our Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Martin, please.
Just I want to add one amazing thing too, that it was actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur who had this clear vision that a worldwide Sankirtan movement cannot be led by one acharya. And this was a completely revolutionary thing at that time, because all the Hindu temples, they all were led by one acharya, and when he was leaving, then, the next one was, appointed. So, and of course, at that time, it was all premature, and then Bhaktisiddhanta took that thought up again, and actually Prabhupada was the only one who could understand.
Who actually did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he even just grasped, even grasped it, and that's one of the main differences really between ISKCON and the Gaudiya Math, that in Gaudiya Math it's still going like that.
Yes. Yeah, one is the Acharya.
Yes.
And he will pass that right of giving initiation to the next Acharya, like it had been done also. Also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he was at his house at Swarupganj, he seen the temple coming, and he predicted that even Germans, English, British, Russians will come and do Sankirtan over there. I think Germany was in the list. Jai, Germany ki jai. Yes?
I have a question too. So I find it very interesting that what everything that she said, and that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told Srila Prabhupada to preach in English. Yes, to go to the English-speaking countries to preach in English, and it comes from somehow from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, can understand, because he has begun this, how to say, dangerous at that time actions, or to preach in English, to translate into English. So not translate, to write in English, yes, because it was not so traditional at that time. And I have a question. It is most part of his works are in Bangla, yes? English not more.
No, it's a spread out Sanskrit, Bengali, English. He was a Bengali, so that was fluent. But he was highly praised already at a very young age in a writing society. English poetry which was praised by the English. Don't think in those days the British are easy praising somebody. They was thinking these Indians are all how you call them, peasants or something.
And that was the revolution, yes, actually, how to say, introduced the English Because sometimes he's called just a revolutionary Acharya. That's because of English language.
We have a book that's called him the seventh Goswami. So yeah. I mean, if we just go what we just read, where he himself described that he was sitting with Swarup Damodar and he inspired him how to write a commentary, an easy to understand commentary on the Bhagavatam, and he gave him a whole description. So there's Jaiva Dharma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also gives an idea where the spirit souls are coming from, and yeah, it's very in depth. It's a very deep dive into our philosophy, with establishing very clear and very easy understandable but very deep principles.
But he's writing very simply. I don't know because I can't understand Bangla, but I'm reading now the translation of Banu Maharaj.
Yes.
It sounds very simple. It is not just about Siddhanta Saraswati. It is readable. It's not very.
Yes. Okay. Let's follow it and go back to Godhead.
One more question. When his wife died, yeah, because there was a gap. You said his wife died.
Yes.
And then the second son appeared, or daughter appeared.
Yeah. Then he married Bhagavati Day.
Also, maybe I didn't understand. Okay, the second wife. And
Yes.
She was taking care of all his.
Yes. That was a custom in those days because he had already a child, and who will take care of that? So he was a big man, so it wasn't a big deal to just. Somebody must have offered, why don't you marry my daughter? And he said yes.
And Vasant Saraswati, his son, from the second wife,
yes? Yes, Bhagavati Devi, yeah. We can follow. That time he was a teacher in Orissa, and then he moved in Orissa to Jagannath Puri, and there he got his Bhakti Siddhanta. He was called Vimal Prasad. Before things get offered, when they come from Jagannath, they go to Vimal Devi first, and then they come out. All right? Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai, and ISKCON Gauradesh Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Kumar, I was thinking you come for singing. I had to sing myself. Okay. Everyone had to suffer from my singing.